Welcome to this three-part series highlighting teachers. Today, I have two of Family Houston's senior clinicians here to discuss ways to help teachers connect remotely with students who are stressed out online. I'm Shelley Long, the manager of communications, and I am excited to introduce both Jorge and Maria, who I have here. So Jorge is a licensed professional counselor with over 5 years of experience providing mental health services in clinical and school settings. He offers English and Spanish counseling and has a strong focus on trauma, PTSD, and anxiety-related issues. And Maria is a licensed professional counselor and a licensed marriage and family therapist in the state of Texas with over 10 years of experience providing mental health services in English and Spanish to individuals and families. She is currently working towards her certification as a play therapist. So thank you both for joining me today.
Thank you for having us.
So school in a traditional setting can cause both teachers and students to become stressed out. I know teachers have been taught and have practiced strategies on how to connect and help students in person, but reaching a stressed out student via Zoom or other online platforms is probably going to look a little different. So I'm going to be asking both of you guys some questions on how we can help teachers and students connect better remotely. And the first one, I'm going to jump over to Maria. So Maria, I know in classrooms in person, it can be a very safe space, for students and teachers to go. So do you have any suggestions on how to create a safe space in a remote classroom?
Yes, so definitely teaching, we know it's more than delivering content. It's about the environment that the teachers create for their students, how they engage with them. So when we think about transitioning from in-person to telelearning, we do expect some challenges to arise. Here are some tips to kind of navigate those challenges, hopefully. One tip would be to establish a routine. Having some structure and predictability is going to help the students decrease a little bit of the anxiety of the unknown. Communication is going to be key for the teacher to take her time or their time to explain how the class is going to look like, the time frames, expectations. An important part of the communication is going to be also to open a space for the students to ask questions, provide feedback in case something is not working. Some of the students are going to face some constraints about time, space, technology. Some of them are going to share the computer with the siblings. So I think having communication, ongoing communication with parents is going to definitely help with co-creating a routine. Also, to take into account the amount of time kids and teachers are going to spend looking at a screen. So making sure to allow some time for a break, movement. I know it's different for different grades. Some of my students have mentioned that it's very helpful to have like dance sessions in between periods, but these are the younger ones. But having like a stretch or just some music to transition from one class to the next one. Flexibility is obviously going to be key to adjusting to all these changes. So another important thing is we know for students to start learning, they first need to feel safe. They need to feel heard and seen. So a quick check-in can create this space for them to start feeling that way or build that up. Some quick check-in ideas would be to ask the students how they're doing today, or choose an animal that describes how you're feeling today. I don't know, you can get very creative. It doesn't have to be like a deep question. Or for the older ones, just put a thumbs up or like applaud if you feel this way or if you need a break or stuff like that. I think the routine, the check-ins, and also to be allowing yourself as a teacher to be transparent with your students that you're also learning, that all this is also new for you, that the classes are not going to be perfect, that you're responding in real time to the dynamics and the needs of the students. So I think it's very beneficial for teachers to also put that out there and recognize it and acknowledge it. So the students also know that you as a teacher are also adjusting to this new normal.
Those are some great points. And I would just like to say, I'm not opposed to doing a little dance break. So just practice the younger ones. Jorge, what are some ways a teacher can help console a student who is crying or maybe showing signs of distress via Zoom?
No, yeah, this is a great question because, like Maria said, depending on the grade level, it may look a little bit differently. So if you have like the little ones, a parent may be there, or they may be in a daycare center where another adult can step in and help. But if you're dealing with like higher elementary school, like fifth grade and up, and a lot of the middle school and high school grade levels, then if this behavior comes out of nowhere where they start crying or they're just really distressed, if you're doing a check-in or a classroom, try to, put them to the side if you can, and like in a solo video. And this is easier done kind of in those check-ins that you do with students individually. And always empathize first, empathize without, judgment. Don't try to solve the problems, just listen. Oftentimes when we see someone in pain, particularly someone that we care about, it's very hard for us to sit with that, and we want to make them feel better immediately. We want to say, okay, what can I give you? What can I say? And they'll maybe say something very hopeful like, oh, there's no need to cry. Life is good. It's okay. You're safe. Da, 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 da. But what's happening is we're panicking. We're panicking and we're not really allowing the child to express themselves. It doesn't mean that we have to hear the entire story of what's going on, but just a quick check-in of, okay, something's going on right now. Tell me a feeling word. Is it sad? Is it mad? Is it confused? Or does it even feel like you can't find the feeling word? And then if they say, well, I can't find the feeling word, okay, then we have a question mark. And then you just get curious. You get curious because it's not your job. And I know educators struggle with this a lot because teachers have to wear so many hats in our society, more now than ever. So, props to them. But it is their job to try to understand and support the student, but they don't have to be the rescuer, the savior. Get some information about what's going on, empathize, normalize that crying or being distressed is a healthy response to all the stress that we're experiencing during this pandemic and transitioning to online learning. That way they don't feel shamed for crying and expressing this emotion. Helping them ground themselves as well. So we do that, through just regular breathing exercises. And, we just remind kids, when you're crying, you're kind of breathing up through here and you're like agitated, and just helping them connect with the belly of, deep breaths. Just put your hand on your stomach and just let the air inflate and deflate. That way they can begin to regulate the physical sensations, because it's not just emotionally, physically, they're going to become agitated as well. And then just grounding them. And if you can get a hold of the parent or contact them if possible, so let them know that something's going on. So that way the child feels supported both in the classroom and at home.
Those are great tips. I think those are super important. And I think it's a good reminder that the teachers have to wear so many hats, but that it's, maybe that's a little bit of a relief they can take off their shoulders, or a weight lifted, that it's not all on them. Here's some ways to support them, but it's not just up to them. Yeah, I'm gonna ask you a question that's a little more intense, and can be a very difficult topic. So, if a teacher suspects a student is depressed or having suicidal ideations, what are some steps they can take to protect the student remotely?
Right. So I think with this one, I think pre-planning is very important. Having all the contact information for your parents, the guardians, have it readily accessible is going to be important. When a student confides in you that they're having thoughts of harming themselves or committing suicide, I think the most important thing to do first is to collect yourself, breathe, stay calm, try not to panic. Kind of like what Jorge mentioned, right? It's very difficult for a student to confide in an adult with something like that. So I think the first step would be to empathize with them. Try not to panic. Try not to judge. Try not to tell them what to do. Just listen first. Research shows that if you talk about suicide, it's not gonna increase the likelihood of the person committing suicide. On the contrary, I think it's very helpful to talk about it, and I think that's something that we shy away because we don't want to increase the thoughts or to say something that is not going to be helpful. I think the most helpful thing would be to first listen and then assess the best way you can. Is this a thought, or is this person already having a plan, right? So it's very different. And the most important thing is to be familiarized with what your district or your school, what are the guidelines or the safety plan guidelines that they have in place. Usually the school counselor would provide you with steps or who to contact or how to navigate a situation like that. If you're not familiarized with that yet, I would advise that you talk to your supervisor or your principal because there are some resources available or steps that you want to make sure you take in order to ensure the safety of your student.
I think that's a great resource to connect them with their school, and that they have their own resources and their own steps available to them, and they may not know. So I think that's a really great point, Maria. And I think you're right that we're so worried about maybe saying the wrong thing that we just don't want to say anything at all. And I'm sure there's still, a really big stigma with it. So I think, again, the more we can talk about it and, remove that stigma and let people know that it's okay, to talk about it. It's healthy and that there's help out there. Jorge, what are some ways teachers can alleviate their own stress or overwhelming feelings they might be experiencing?
Yeah, this is a huge question. So I'll do my best job to kind of say it in a nutshell, just because teachers, we know before COVID-19, they were already super stressed out. The role is very demanding. So now even more so, people that never thought they'd be online educators are suddenly online educators. And I know quite a number of teachers myself that teach in various grade levels, and I've been hearing from them the amount of stress that they're under, but that they want to do a great job. And what I would recommend to educators out there that are really, struggling with this stress is be honest with yourself. Be honest in a way that is compassionate, because sometimes people will hear that, be honest, and they think, well, be direct, be blunt, be harsh. And it's not that. It's, let's admit the truth here, that this year is 2020 altogether, not just 2020 to 2021 academic school year. 2020 is different than any other year that we've dealt with prior. We never envisioned this. We were so happy at the beginning of this brand new decade that we're going to be living through the 20s, and then
we got the bad part of the 20s. We got
exactly. Yeah, we thought we'd have to wait until the 30s for that, but no, the 20s hit us pretty hard, and educators should be honest that the expectations that you had for yourself going into this brand new school year, they were probably very different at the beginning. You probably thought, whether you're a novice teacher or a more seasoned teacher, you probably had a lot of expectations of how things are going to go, how you're going to grow, things that you want to see your students do, whether you're a pre-K teacher, seeing your little ones go off into to kindergarten, or if you're a senior teacher for 12th grade, that you wanted to go see your students walk, the stage for graduation, and you can't get that now. Tune in with yourself, be honest of how can I modify my expectations for myself as an educator. It doesn't mean lower your standards for yourself. We're not talking about that. Because sometimes people will think, well, no, I shouldn't just give up on my job. Absolutely not. But modify, be realistic of what you really can do. Because if you don't modify your expectations, what will happen is you're going to add more and more stress, and you will internalize. And then we risk a lot of burnout. So I always say, be honest, and also just take stock of your emotional inventory. How was I before the new academic school year started? Was I already struggling? Was I out okay? Because knowing that gauge will help you understand, when do I need to infuse more self-care in my life? When do I need to connect more with my loved ones, even if it's virtually? Or when do I need to seek out professional help?
Speaking of, I'm going to ask you this one again, Jorge, then. When, if maybe a teacher or just anyone who's watching this is having continuous feelings of being stressed or overwhelmed, when would be a good time, or when would you recommend that they seek out professional help?
Sooner is always better than later. And that's not to say, if you wait, there's still, great progress that can be made, but the sooner you get in, the much easier it will be to address the issue. And you want to look out for signs of burnout. We're all stressed right now, even ourselves as therapists, Maria and I, we're having our own individual stress with transitioning just to the pandemic and in our clients' needs, but we're tuning in with ourselves. And there's a difference between regular occupational work-related stress and then burnout. So burnout is when you feel that intense disillusionment with your career, where it's not just like, oh my gosh, I have to go to work. It's, I don't care anymore. I don't want to do this anymore. It's almost very kind of it's letting go in a very kind of either angry or sad way. We see increase of irritability, anxiety, sleep issues, sometimes eating issues where they just have a loss of appetite. So if you're experiencing symptoms of burnout and you're recognizing, oh, I feel like I'm just not caring anymore, and that's not like me at all. It's very uncommon. That's a big red and yellow flag right there that, it's time to seek out professional help. And thankfully, districts will provide, insurance plans, whether you are in the district plan or with your spouse's plan or another family member's insurance plan. People always forget about, employee assistance programs, EAPs. So contact your HR to figure out what your EAP benefits under your insurance are, because you may have 3, maybe 8 sessions free with a therapist, which is going to really reduce any financial burden that you may have currently because of the pandemic. And then also, if you have insurance, check out, people that are within network agencies like Family Houston. I like to tell people when I'm out in the community, we take every insurance under the sun. As a nonprofit, we try to make it as accessible as possible. So if there's an insurance out there, most likely nonprofits will take it. And you can find qualified therapists there at affordable rates. And then also, if you're brave enough, if you have a friend that maybe they've undergone their own therapy journey, you can always ask for referrals of, hey, do you know someone that you feel is really good in handling the situation? Because there is no shame at all in getting help.
I think that's a really great point about EAP. I forget that we have it too, and that we, it's something we can be utilizing. So it's a good reminder for all of us. Okay, and I have one last question, and that's going to be for both of you. Maria, I'm going to have you answer first. So while there's obviously going to be many hurdles and challenges that students and teachers are going to face this year, what are some positives that you think might come out of this?
I think that despite of being isolated from others, I think we're experiencing this collective cultural moment. No one is untouched by this pandemic. I think we're surprising ourselves on what is it that we can do. I think teachers are the most creative people on the planet. So I'm sure they're gonna come up with great ways to connect with their students and kind of like along the lines with what Jorge was mentioning, adjusting the expectations, being kind to yourself throughout this process. I think you're gonna discover how amazing this challenge can be. Me personally, professionally, it was very hard for me to get into the idea of having sessions going from in-person to telehealth. Was very difficult for me. I thought it was going to be very impersonal, but to my surprise, I really enjoy now the play therapy sessions on the computer, and kids are very resourceful. I think you're going to find a lot of growth, perseverance, togetherness. I think you're going to, we all being more appreciative or grateful of things that maybe in the past we took for granted. So I think it's a whole new space for new possibilities.
Jorge, do you have anything you want to add to that?
Yeah, it's hard to top that, but I'll try.
I know.
So definitely, I will echo everything Maria said. That this is a great time to see growth. In the middle of this pandemic, it feels like, the thing about the pandemic is it's not over. This is different from other crises in that, as opposed to like a natural disaster where the moment happens and then the moment is over, and then we can, collectively sigh with relief and start to heal. We're still in the middle of this, but because we are all, because we are all hurting right now, we have a greater chance than ever to empathize and connect with one another. Because just like Maria said, there is no one really in the world that is being unimpacted or not impacted by this pandemic. We all have our stories to share. We can all commiserate with one another. We can all empathize. We can all be there for one another. And that sense of unity, it may not feel like it's happening right now because we're still in the middle of it. And even like right now, we can't be near physically one another right now. But your friends and loved ones, they are a phone call away, a text away, a Zoom call away, a Skype call, whatever, Microsoft Teams, whatever you want to do, and they will understand. And there's people out there that want to listen. So we have a great chance to connect and really realize the collective strength that we all hold. And we're gonna grow, just like Maria said, and we're gonna become better because of it.
That's awesome. I don't think there's anything else I could possibly add on top of that. Thank you both for joining me today and giving us some advice to share with teachers and hopefully some things that could help them take some stress and a load off their shoulders as they are going through an incredibly difficult and challenging year. And we are just so appreciative of all the work teachers do for the students and children in our community. So thank you both. And thank you to all the teachers